every month, I host an Ask Me Anything Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Communications. It's a monthly meetup, half hour, and people send me questions and I respond to them. And so here's one. Gen Z, the most diverse generation to date, is entering the workforce with tremendous expectations for DEI. Any advice or best practices for communicating with Gen Z specifically? And how about other generations, millennials, Gen X, boomers? This is the first time that we've had 5 generations in the workplace. Okay, traditionalists are in there as well. And so when you're talking about Gen Z in particular, it's important to know about any of these generations that there's exceptions. There's no monolith. We like to categorize, that's our unconscious bias, saying, please help me make sense of my 20-year-old versus my 40-year-old colleague. Please help me, and my 60-year-old colleague, please help me make sense of them and their behavior. So and categorization can help us, right? However, we can't stick to it and assume that everyone fits into the categorization that we're creating in our own heads, or that what we're seeing out in the world. So, but what's key and relevant to us as communicators is the technology that each generation has grown up with. So if you look at traditionalists, they like the in-person. You look at boomers, it's the telephone. You look at Gen X, which is me, and we're about email. And then millennials, instant messenger, and Gen Z, text. Now, there's exceptions across. You could be Gen X and you're like, I'm all about the texting. Or you could be millennial and you're like, I'm all about the in-person or the phone. So again, we can't, everyone doesn't fit into these boxes. That's part of diversity, the diversity work. But understanding these kind of technologies that each generation has grown up with, we need to address and find people where they already are. So understanding that these technological channels are available to them, that is super key. And then helping not only meet where the generations of our workforce are actually already, we also have to understand that our content has to make sure that we are representing these different generations. Okay, so if a lot of our visuals are with 20-something hipsters, that's not representative of our workforce. If we're trying to like look young and hip and everything, well, you know what's really hip? You know what's really cool is having a variety of generations in your workforce and celebrating that. Recognizing the value of different generations. I do ageism trainings often because it is part of diversity, equity, inclusion communications. There's microaggressions that come out of ageism, there's tokenization, and there's exclusion that happens, especially in our visuals, when it comes to missing the opportunity and telling the stories of the variety of generations within our workforce. And that has real world consequences when we do this, because older people are already dealing with ageism in not being able to be hired because their salary is higher than someone who's 25. Recognizing the value of that experience is really key. And it's not fair to somebody coming in 25 with nobody to learn from. And it's not fair to have somebody who's 50 not giving them access to somebody who's 25 and having somebody to learn from. So yes, there's mentoring, there's sponsorship, but there's also reverse mentoring and reverse sponsorship. So as communicators, take a look at the technology, meet people where they're at, and then make sure that your communications, whether it's your content or your visuals, are representative and inclusive. All right, sign up for Ask Me Anything on DEI Communications, and I'll see you there and see you then.